Well, yesterday we knew he was a 34-year-old former naval reservist. Today we know that he reported hearing voices in his head and recently bought a shotgun. Tragically, we can only connect those last two after Aaron Alexis killed 12 people and injured 8 more at the Washington Navy Yard on Monday morning. Once again, the country tries to make sense of the senseless while a dozen American families prepare to bury people they loved. And once again, it looks like warning signs were missed. Here's ABC's senior national correspondent Jim Avila on the latest in our continuing coverage of the Navy Yard shooting rampage.
It was an amazing sight. A gunman on the loose at the Navy Yard, and a parked police helicopter hovers into range on purpose, hovering just above the building tops, lowering a rescue basket to tactical police below, pulling people to safety.
And what was the urgency going on that you would do something so risky or dangerous?
Well, we had people on the rooftop that needed to be evacuated, and that's the main priority at that point was to get the people off the rooftop.
They didn't know much about the killer then, just that he was on the attack and he might have 1 or 2 accomplices. So Mike Abate leaned out of the copter, an M16 on his shoulder providing cover for his partners, the pilots, and an officer lowering the basket.
How many times have you had to actually have a rifle in your hand while you're doing a rescue?
A rifle for a rescue, this would be a first.
What was the information you had going in about what was going on below?
I just knew that there was an active shooter.
One, or did you think there might be more?
Initially, I was heard potentially there might be 2.
Now we know what they were dealing with. Just 30 feet below their rotors, what turned out to be just one gunman on a shooting rampage. But law enforcement authorities tell ABC News that man, Aaron Alexis, was in a final descent into madness, and the signs were all too obvious. Just last month, on August 7th at 6 in the morning, while Alexis was already working as a contractor on another military base, he called the Newport police in Rhode Island with a delusional tale, documented in a police report obtained by ABC News. He described the confrontation with an unidentified person who had sent 3 people to follow him and to keep him awake by talking to him and sending vibrations to his body through a microwave machine. He switched hotels 3 times that night trying to escape the voices. Newport authorities contacted Naval Station Police, but it's not clear exactly what action the military took. Late tonight, law enforcement sources tell ABC News Alexis sought treatment from the VA in both Rhode Island and Washington, D.C. for insomnia. It was just the latest in a decade-long string of disturbing incidents, including 3 arrests and a series of military infractions. Despite all this, Alexis went to work for a government computer contractor at the Washington Navy Yard using a secret security clearance he had received after joining the Navy. He came to the D.C. area on August 25th, only 17 days after hearing those voices in Rhode Island. And today, 1 day after Alexis was shot and killed after brutally costing 12 others their lives, the FBI would not talk about his mental state.
Director, can you give us any guidance on whether this young man was seeking any kind of psychological treatment?
No, I can't comment on that.
But we do have new details on what Alexis was up to just 2 days before his murderous rampage. On Saturday, September 14th, Alexis visited Sharpshooters, a gun store and firing range in Lorton, Virginia, 20 miles from Washington, D.C. He fired an AR-15 assault rifle at a practice range and purchased a Remington 870 shotgun, the weapon he used Monday morning. At the Navy Yard, he entered the front door with a valid security pass, carrying a duffel-type bag, hustling directly to a bathroom on the 4th floor, out into the hallway, shooting away. From there, down to the 3rd floor, standing on a catwalk overlooking the atrium, and shooting down into the food court cafeteria. And finally down the stairwell to the 1st floor, killing a security guard before taking his handgun. Meanwhile, on the roof, Sergeant Burchell and Sergeant Tolson of the United States Park Police are executing the most dangerous kind of helicopter rescue, lowering a hoist to the rooftop of Building 197 to help an injured woman in desperate need of immediate medical attention.
Hoist operations are one of the most challenging of our mission profiles, if not the most challenging. It puts the most amount of strain on the aircraft, requires the greatest level of crew coordination.
At risk of becoming targets of the active shooter, the team hovers over the roof and had just minutes to make their move.
While I'm lowering this basket, I'm doing so from a moving helicopter. And winds change, so it was very important that we maintain our position over the victim, because if we were to move and that pulled the basket and she wasn't properly loaded in there, we might take ourselves out of position, or worse still, create an unsafe situation for the victim.
They reached the woman who has a serious shoulder injury and is bleeding badly. She is conscious, and they rush her to MedStar Hospital.
She did describe the suspect for us and her whereabouts as she last knew them. And that's why I commented she was incredibly composed and very brave.
With amazing teamwork, they're able to airlift 4 people to safety.
We are definitely not heroes, but we saw a lot of heroes out there. We're just guys, we just did our part.
But despite the heroism, Aaron Alexis could not be stopped until it was too late. A determined killer. John Weaver, a 13-year veteran of the Navy Yard, could not believe his eyes as he watched Alexis methodically murder 6 of his friends right where they worked.
I heard a really loud bang. About 2 seconds later, I heard another really loud bang, and then I realized somebody is in here and they are shooting people. Wow. So I popped my head up and I saw him pointing his gun at my friend, and he shot her.
So Weaver ducked behind his cubicle, pulled a cabinet to block the entrance, and while hiding beneath his desk, called 911. But the gunfire would not stop.
A couple more shots went off, and this was with a shotgun. He was using a shotgun the whole time. I saw him with the shotgun, and I couldn't believe it. And he was proceeding to just walk through the building and just slaughter people. And I probably heard 30 shots. So then the fire alarm went off. And that was my signal to get out of there. So I jumped up, pushed the cabinet away, ran away, went down to the end of my corridor, and Mary was laying on the ground.
Mary Frances Knight was John Weaver's boss.
He looked like he was all business, except he had his jaw clenched so you could just see the ball of his jaw, And when he looked at her, he looked straight at her, clenched that jaw, and just boom. Like, it was kind of like just business to him, it seemed.
A dozen innocent dead, a harsh reality that still has this grown man trembling as he talks.
The people he killed were so nice and did not deserve to die a horrible death like they did. It was tragic.
For Nightline, I'm Jim Avila in Washington.